All right, everyone. Marwan King AI here. What's going on? Today we're diving into a different kind of build, less of a traditional app, more of a interactive generative art piece. We're going to use AI tools to detail prompts to create. The AI tool we're going to use is not Gemini, well Gemini, but Google AI Studios made some prompts to create something visually unique. I'm calling chronoform, basic like a poly shape, kind of like a poly-shaped sphere. There's a lot of names for these. The core idea is, for me, it's just going to be like the fusion or clash between the geometry of it all, the raw, energetic, um, digital form of it all, with some colors, kind of like a graffiti kind of element coming out of it. And you see, I got lovable here, tempo, and Firebase are all going to showcase this. And right now we have lovable kind of building that first prompt out. And visually, we're aiming for a sophisticated dark theme with high contrast, luminous elements, and a feeling of like dynamic energy coming from crazy like order. So poly shape is going to be the polysphere is going to be kind of like the order, and then the, the colors coming out of it's kind of going to be the chaos. And then we got Firebase running that first prompt. Um, developed a sequence of 3 hyper detail prompts. Each prompt builds on the last, um, guiding the development process step by step. We'll be looking at how AI platforms like Lovable or Tempo might handle these interactions, and also how Firebase does it as well. We'll even look at the prompts used to generate specific visual assets needed along the way. There's Tempo, loading the project up and getting started. Critically, for each prompt, we had a specific visual target in mind. We started with this Genesis image, kind of like the beginning. Then we aim for like an emergent state. Here's Firebase firing it up, um, with like interactive graffiti element, which is just some colors. And finally, the polish, the final climax is going to be a full post processing. Um, Having these visual benchmarks is going to be key when working with AI generation. So that's lovable running it. And then we have Firebase. It's just started firing up. Okay, so prompt one sets the entire stage. It tells the platform, either Lovable Tempo or Firebase, in this case, to build the foundational 3D scenes, create the essential seed form based on our target um, details here, and establish the initial aesthetic and ensure like a basic performance. And as you can see, Lovable has already created that first poly shape. The word is so hard. I think it's a icosahedron, something like that. There's a lot of names for these. Apollo hedron. Um, and I do like how it already created that beautiful shape. Um, so what did I ask for? A full screen WebGL scene using 3JS, specifically with React, 3Fiber, R3F, which makes using 3GS and React a little easier. We need that deep space background, maybe some simple stars using a dry component. Prompt also mentions adding faint nebula dust just for the atmosphere. And then we also can see we got some particle sprays, digital drips, seed form interaction um, for prompt 2. And we're going to go ahead and put a prompt 2 in there as well for lovable. But the other 2 are still working on prompt 1. The main focus in the seed form is for the complex wireframe shape kind of thing to start building. Maybe an it's like an icosahedron or like a detailed geodesic sphere rather than like glowing electric cyan or cyan. I don't know how to say that. And there's a wireframe that Firebase has built. And as you can see, when I click the screen, I can let out all these cool colors. And that's really from prompt 1. But putting these 3 prompts in sequentially, like and just basically watching what it builds. And this is a pretty cool little design here. Simply wowed by this, like all the colors coming out. The shape is so perfect. See how all those triangles kind of come together to create like a different form. I think it's like 20 triangles, something like that, to create a form. And you can see that seed in the very center. So we have slow, smooth rotation for the seed form, minimal lighting, some sparse background particles for depth, and the clean chromoforms. Look at that. And that's the Firebase one. With Tailwind, mandates the initial 60 plus FPS performance, but I don't think I'm pulling it on this unit, this computer here. It's not my main one. It's all about getting a precise Genesis visual target rendered perfectly as our starting point. As you can see here, Firebase and Lovable are doing a really good job trying to come up with something. Firebase went straight for the gold, and Lovable seems to still be trying to render something here. Now the prompt 2 is going to be the emergence and interaction. This is where the math meets the graffiti concept, and it's going to truly ignite. We introduced the user interaction so that you can keep clicking on there and creating some cool colors and spawn dynamic generative graffiti elements, which is what the colors are supposed to signify. And that's so beautiful that you can see the backgrounds changing. The seed form just needs to react. The prompt asks for subtle changes on the while it hovers. The lines grow a little brighter, and the more noticeable pulse or particle burst when you click directly on it. This requires ray casting to detect the mouse position in 3D, and then animating material properties. So the main part is the generative graffiti. When the user clicks or drags the empty background, the prompt mandates spawning particle sprays that look like digital paint, using that specific vibrant graffiti color palette, teals and pinks, to get the right texture. And look at that, Lovable still working it, but Lovable still has a pretty cool, like you can see the stars in the background kind of floating around, and some particles, some purple particles, and then, oh, there it is. And as I drill at it, it lets me basically kind of like spray paint or carve basically color into the space. I'm literally just carving color into the space. Now the orb itself, not that impressive, but what it's still trying to do is pretty impressive. And then Firebase has this perfectly rendered early 90s, something that looks like it came out of a DOS system, or I don't know, pretty old looking, but so legendary looking orb. And this is Lovable's just going crazy. And usually we're making applications or websites, but I just wanted to have some fun with some shapes and put some math in there and see what it could do. And this is really creative. Firebase has really blown me away with its badass little design here. And the final stage is going to be the structure, the dynamics, the interaction. I'm going to focus entirely on adding that high-end cinematic visual polish. I'm just going to try to use some post-processing effects, refining every detail to perfectly match like our final target image or target projection of what we wanted, which is like a meticulously tuned specified post-processing stack. We want that interaction satisfaction, and tempo is working it, but I messed up a little. I always mess up on tempo. You see he's creating an orb type thing down here, but I didn't pull it forward, so I'm not going to be able to see it, I don't think. I'm trying to achieve that final stunning visual with these. The main tool here is post-processing and React 3 libraries. I want to add some effects over the entire rendered scene, but first we have to try to help tempo push on through, and it's just, as you can see, having some kind of issues here. I'm gonna go back to Firebase and back to the prompt real quick. Okay, accessibility polish, interaction refinement, um, luminous states. Um, any UI controls are keyboard navigatable and have appropriate ARIA labels and roles. Let's consider adding a control panel if it can. Very tech focused here. Final aesthetics and branding, and we're just going to take that prompt and we're going to start sending it out. The most important effect to me, I think, is the bloom. The prompt requires really careful tuning here to get that intense but soft radiance on all the glowing parts, the lattice, the core, the graffiti-like element, just like in the target image that I started with, and I'll show those images in a second. Gives it more cinematic of a cinematic high energy feel with that film grain that started to come over it, and using that film grain overlay texture. If the platform will support it all the way, it textures like a noise effect. This adds a subtle texture, unifying like clean lines and messy graffiti. Look at that. So much color bursting out of the lovable one, and I'm just clicking the screen. As you can see, I'm just carving art into this black space. And it says Chronoforms by Milan King AI at the bottom. And you can see this one says it now too. That was from the second prompt. Has a digital edge, and we even suggest optionally adding a lens dirt texture to the bloom for extra like a realism touch, which is Firebase is really doing very well. And we're gonna polish everything, refine the graffiti particle physics one last time in that last prompt, making sure all the hover and click animations use smooth easing functions, and doing another heavy round of optimization to keep that 60 plus frame per second stable with all effects running. But like I said, I don't think it's working very well. And then we have Lovable still facing some errors here. Let's see what's going on. So I told it, fix the errors. I'm gonna be looking at the errors, and then as you can see, I tried to tell Firebase on that last prompt to switch some things up, and it kind of tightened up. It made the seed so much bigger and made the poly shape so much tighter. But still, those cool animations are still coming out, as you can see, which is pretty neat. Oh my gosh, wow. The PC I'm on is a little older than what I usually use, which is a Mac. But this, this is nice. I love it. Oh wow, so much is coming out. Everywhere I click is just like an explosion of color. It does keep resetting itself pretty quick if I click outside of the shape, but if I click inside the shape, it just keeps coming out, which is really awesome. And that's Firebase for you. I've had a lot of trial and error with Firebase and didn't actually give it much credit here, but this is actually pretty impressive. And I have some other ideas that I'm working on as well that should be very cool. So pretty neat. Core Forms is a great example of using prompts to specify like a complex, visually driven front-end experience, while the AI builders can scaffold like parts very quickly. Achieving this level of specific visual fidelity, interaction performance often requires careful prompting, providing specific assets and potentially manual refinement, especially when dealing with advanced graphics and other techniques. So pretty neat. So Lovable is likely strong. I'd say Lovable is strong on the initial UI shell, and then potentially integrating a 3JS canvas, handling the complex particle systems, shader effects, post-processing. Tempo struggled a little bit with the 3JS setup and custom rendering components, hitting errors like we saw before. If it gets past those errors, implementing the detailed particle physics and post-processing purely via prompts would be a major test for it. Pretty easy test though, I'm sure. And the Firebase is the developer part. You used 3JS, R3F. Definitely achieved it. The prompt provides a clear roadmap. It required expertise in WebGL shaders, even simple ones, particle systems, and post-processing libraries. Um, but it had careful performance tuning. So, and there we have it. We have the final vision for core forms built step by step through 3 detailed prompts, each stage adding layers of complexity and visual fidelity, guided by specific visual targets and asset inputs. It's a process that blends design specification, technical requirements, and a little bit of refinement there. And so, what do you think of the concept here and the final visual? Um, could you see AI like building something like this flawlessly? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this breakdown of building generative art with prompts, hit subscribe for more of my AI projects. Thanks for watching. Appreciate the time. Marwan King AI, and I'm out.